As countries around the world fight the pandemic, they're also fighting disinformation. In March, we asked Americans who had yet to get the vaccine why they were hesitant. More than half said it was because they distrusted the government and the people making the vaccine. We've heard a lot about trust in fake news lately. Now, what if I actually said to you that people who engage in fake news stories, they're actually hyper concerned about finding the truth? This is something Tommy Shane's been focused on. He's the head of impact and policy at First Draft, which focuses on protecting communities from misinformation, and joins me now. So Tommy, after reading some of your writings, including the piece that you wrote called The Difference Between the Facts and the Truth, I realize that I may be a bit of an information/truth snob. I have had these conversations a lot over, the last few years where I've talked to people who I consider intelligent and, they spew out this stuff that I think is a conspiracy theory. And I kind of walk away going, they don't care about the truth. And you say, in fact, it's the opposite, that in many cases they are searching for the truth. So keeping that in mind, I want to ask you, what is the difference? How do you define the difference between a fact and a truth?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me. And you're tackling exactly the right point. When we speak to people who've maybe been tricked or have fallen for a conspiracy theory, it's very easy to think that either they're stupid or they just don't care anymore. We talk a lot about a post-truth society, but actually people do really care about the truth. And it's very easy when you search for information online. We found that if you search for the words coronavirus truth, you're more likely to be led down a path to conspiracy theories and the idea of a hidden truth and something to be uncovered. And so this very genuine and authentic attempt to just understand what's happening and what you should do about it can be manipulated by people trying to steer you down a different direction. So I think it's important for us to be sympathetic with people who do get misled, and also to be aware that that can happen to us to us as well.
So there are two sort of funnels that I found sort of fascinating. One is something that you just touched on, because you guys are really focused on sort of online searches, that's where a lot of people get their information, and the way the algorithms work. That if you put in the word fact, you get a series of lists. A list of information, and if you put in the word truth, you're more likely to get something else. Can you talk to us about the way these algorithms work to funnel us in certain directions and then shape our understanding of the world?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, when you search for something online, an algorithm will make decisions about what search results that you get. And this happens on search engines like Google and Bing. It also happens on social media platforms when you search for information. We sometimes forget that Facebook and Twitter, they're search engines as well. But I think the thing that what we're really touching upon in this piece is that it's not just the algorithms. Often conspiratorial movements will tell you to, do your research, to look up things for yourself, to think critically, to look up information. And they know that if they prime you with certain keywords, something as innocuous as truth, or it might be in the case of a vaccine, an obscure false ingredient that they're claiming is actually going to harm you. They know that if you search for that word, they can dominate those top results and that they can steer you in a certain direction while tricking you into thinking that you're being empowered and you're looking up information for yourself, when actually that's that journey, that genuine journey, is being steered and directed. And that's why one of the big things that conspiracy theories say is, do your research. They tell you that because they know that they can steer you in a certain direction. And that's a real challenge, because if people are searching for these terms, then the algorithms are going to serve them what's available. And often that's just misinformation. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that you sort of touched on that I thought was interesting was this idea of knowing, like how we come to know what we believe to be a truth. And that sometimes sort of the more mainstream institutions, the media, that I would consider part of that, mainstream media, there's a focus on only certain outlets for facts are legitimate. But for many other people, there are other legitimate outlets. Their personal life experience is a legitimate way of collecting the truth. And so there is a risk when we dismiss someone's life experience that that we're dismissing their idea of the truth, and then we're on parallel tracks. Fact and truth become two sort of parallel journeys, parallel destinations. Do you understand what I'm saying? I hope I'm explaining it right to you.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. I mean, when we think about the facts, we think about fact checks and news programs like this, and we expect official bodies to look up information, to do the research, come to a conclusion, and then tell us. And this has been the model of information seeking for decades. But with the internet, everyone has the ability to look up information themselves. You might say, oh, back in the day, you had to go to a library to look something up. Well, people didn't do that. People just didn't know. Whereas now, Google is in our pockets. We can search information, and we expect to be able to do that. So we expect to be able to look up things for ourselves, to connect with people online, to piece it together, to even look at videos and analyze them, analyze images. This model of the truth, as we're kind of calling it, is interactive, and it gives you a sense of purpose. It can give you a sense of community. So what can the risk is that we're used to a top-down model of communication where experts come up with their idea of their assessment of the evidence, and we just passively accept that that's true. Well, there's a new paradigm, there's a new model of communication that fulfills a lot of different kinds of needs. It fulfills needs around community, around a sense of purpose, a quest even, you're uncovering some hidden truth. And if we dismiss those people as ignorant or immoral people, we will miss what it is that these conspiracy theories offer them, and we'll fail to ask questions of ourselves about what different kinds of models we need to adopt. Essentially, what we can learn from these conspiracy theorists about how to engage people in the digital era.
So I guess my last question is, what is the remedy? Obviously, questioning institutions, I think, is a good thing. They shouldn't sort of be the be-all and end-all of information. But we have seen where sometimes that questioning, goes down a dangerous path. And we have people who believe in all kinds of wacky conspiracy theories and show up at pizza parlors looking for crimes in the basement that don't exist. So then what is the remedy? What's the happy medium?
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. We need to make sure we are holding our institutions to a high standard. We can't just assume that they are always trustworthy. We've got to make sure that we make sure that they're delivering services in a fair and equitable way. But when it comes to misinformation, we have to do a few things. We have to find methods to spot rumors before they turn into big viral claims that people start believing. As with medicine, prevention is preferable to cure when it comes to misinformation. So we've got to get ahead of it. We talk at First Draft, where I work, a lot about data deficits, which is where a lot of people want to know about something, but there isn't a lot of credible information out there. So they're exposed to misinformation. So we've got to spot vulnerabilities like that. And then we've also got to teach people, we've got to help them see examples of misinformation, kind of like a vaccine. So expose them to an example of misinformation in a kind of controlled way, so that when they're out in the wild on social media, they know what they're looking for, they can spot it and say, I've seen this, I've been told that this is something that's going to trick me, and I'm not going to believe it. So we have to both look at things as early as possible, build these early warning systems, and then help the people, the public, really spot the kinds of techniques that are designed to manipulate them.
I think that's really, really smart. That is great advice because, oftentimes once somebody sort of believes something, it's really hard for them to let go of that belief because it becomes quite personal. So if you give them the tools ahead of time so they can recognize the warning signs that something may not exactly be factual and therefore not truthful, then they won't sort of absorb that into what they consider truthful about the world. Tommy Shane, it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.